Nigel Farage triggered a by-election in Clacton. On the surface, democracy in action, but below the surface, a bill. The estimated cost to the taxpayer between £200,000 and £230,000. That is not a figure I invented, that is the Electoral Commission's own estimated range for administering a parliamentary by-election, and every single taxpayer in this country is picking up that tab. I want to do something straightforward in this video. I want to tell you what that money actually is, and what it could have bought, and what Farage's own public rhetoric says about a man who spent it. So first, the math. Here is the calculation. I checked the average cost of a single room in a 4-star hotel in Clacton. It runs roughly £100 a night. I used to work in the hotel industry and I currently work in homelessness. I know that 4-star accommodation is the extreme exception for anyone housed by the government. You exhaust every option first, and even then you would move that person out the next day into something that is less expensive. But let us give Farage every favourable assumption. Let us assume one person per room, which it won't be for asylum accommodation, it'll be multiples of people in one room, at the highest local rate with no bulk discounts. £200,000, the cost of that by-election, divided by £100 per night, the average rate of a single room in a 4-star hotel in Clacton, that is 2,000 nights. Or 5.5 years of accommodation. With a rough sleeping problem, taking a rough sleeper off the street, putting them into a 4-star hotel, which again would never happen, with a bed, shower, receptionist and breakfast, 5.5 years. If you drop it down to a 3-star, which is usually still above what the government actually books, you're looking at close to 6 or 7 years accommodation. Now remember what Farage has spent the last 2 years saying, that asylum seekers in hotels represent waste, that the taxpayer is being fleeced, that money should go to the British people in need. Well, here is £200,000 of taxpayers' money that he chose to spend on himself. Not on housing, not on services, on a by-election stunt he did not need to call, in a seat he already held, to avoid scrutiny on a separate matter entirely. So next I'll talk about the context. Let us be clear about why this by-election happened. Farage was facing pressure and investigation over a £5 million payoff to a political appointee outside of the normal rules of disclosure. The by-election was not a matter of democratic principle. It was a tactical manoeuvre to change the subject and reset the news cycle. And it cost every British person, every one of us, £200,000 in total. This is the same Nigel Farage who has made his reputation on opposition to asylum seekers being housed in hotels. The same Nigel Farage whose rhetoric helped create the environment in which Lucy Connolly recommended that hotels be burnt down, for which she received a custodial sentence. The same Nigel Farage whose allies then talked about Lucy's law to protect people who wanted to burn down those hotels. The parallel is direct. He will spend years telling you that housing people in hotels is a waste. But when he had the choice between spending £200,000 on a pointless political stunt to protect his own position or not spending it, he chose the stunt. There is no ideological consistency here. There is only exceptionalism. His interests is what counts here. The national interest does not. So next I'll look at the opportunity cost. I want to stay with the arithmetic because the arithmetic is damning enough without additional expansion. £200,000 is roughly the cost of 8 hip replacements in the NHS. It is a year of sustained mental health outreach for a community. It is the annual salary, with change, for 6 newly qualified nurses. It is the kind of money that, if it appeared in a council budget for youth services, would be described as transformative. Instead, it paid for ballot papers, polling stations and staff overtime so that Nigel Farage could avoid a difficult conversation about a £5 million donation, and so he could run against a man with a bin on his head in a 2-horse race that by all accounts has made him a laughingstock. There is no return on that investment for the country, absolutely none. The benefit accrues entirely to one man, and that's Nigel Farage. And if you wanted the wider pattern, you already know it. This is a man who cost the country something far larger than £200,000 over the last decade. The tariff barriers, the trade friction with what was at the time over half of our trade, the inflationary pressure, the lost tax revenue that could have funded the very services he now pretends to care about, during a cost of living crisis that his own project helped deepen. I'm not saying that the by-election and Brexit are the same thing. I'm saying they share a characteristic, a recklessness with other people's money, a willingness to burn public resource for personal or political gain, and a complete absence of accountability afterwards. A very experienced politician who knows what a by-election costs He knew. He just did not care. Because it was not his money. It was yours. It was ours. So in conclusion, Nigel Farage wants you to believe he's on the side of the taxpayer against waste. But the taxpayer just got a £200,000 bill for his convenience. That is not leadership. That is not principle. That is a man who has learned that there is no consequence for spending your money on himself. I will leave you with that number. 2,000 nights, 5.5 years in a 4-star hotel, or 1 afternoon of Nigel Farage's politics. That is a choice he made, and that is what your money paid for. Please like and subscribe if this got you thinking. Thank you for watching.